Eleanor Caldwell pressed her hand against the cool glass of the car window as her son's SUV turned into the narrow, tree-lined driveway of his suburban home. She told herself this was temporary. Just a few weeks, maybe a month. Time enough to heal from her minor surgery and regain her independence. Lucas had insisted. Marissa had sounded, well, polite at least. But still, Eleanor's stomach tensed as the tires crunched over gravel. The house was modern, angular, and coldly beautiful. It didn't look like it contained children or warmth. Marissa greeted her at the door with an air kiss and a forced smile, her blonde hair pulled tight into a bun, her manicured hand barely grazing Eleanor's arm. "Come in," Marissa said flatly. "Let me show you the guest room. Not your room, not stay as long as you need, just guest room." Lucas, once her adoring son, carried her suitcase up the stairs without a word. He hadn't made much eye contact since picking her up from the hospital. His jaw remained tightly clenched, his tone clipped, as if he were helping a neighbor, not his own mother. The guest room was clinical, spare, gray, and impersonal. A framed print of abstract swirls. A stiff mattress. No television. No family photos. Eleanor sat on the edge of the bed, feeling like luggage herself, deposited and forgotten. It started small. The little cruelties. Marissa would forget her tea preferences and serve her coffee, despite Eleanor's ulcer. She would sigh audibly when Eleanor asked for help reaching something. Lucas, when home, kept his eyes on his phone, responding to her questions with nods or one-word answers. Dinners were tight-lipped affairs. Every conversation felt like it had already overstayed its welcome. One evening, Eleanor came downstairs early to help prepare dinner. Marissa was on the phone in the kitchen, voice hushed but sharp-edged. "No, not yet, but soon. She won't last. She's already snooping around. I swear if she opens her mouth about anything." The moment Marissa saw her, she flinched. Her face transformed into a smile so tight it looked painful. "That was just the florist," she lied. "Wrong order again, can you believe it?" Eleanor pretended not to hear, but a quiet unease began to settle over her like dust. What exactly did Marissa think she might say? Later that night, Eleanor reached into the kitchen drawer looking for batteries. She found something else instead. An envelope marked medical proxy. Curious, she opened it. Her name was there. But so was a signature that wasn't hers. Power of attorney. Medical decision-making authority. Signed, dated, notarized. Eleanor had never seen this before in her life. She nearly dropped the document. Her hands trembled as she shoved it back in, heart pounding. She'd always been careful. Careful with her finances, her health, her independence. But someone had forged her name, and that someone lived under this roof. That night, she lay awake staring at the ceiling, questions racing through her head like wildfire. Why had Lucas been acting so strange? Why did Marissa speak like Eleanor's presence was a threat? And what exactly had they planned? With that fake document ready and waiting. By the end of the week, her medication was mysteriously misplaced twice. She began keeping her pills in her coat pocket. Then came Sunday. They were all seated around the table, a sad roast chicken between them. The air was brittle. Eleanor commented on a photograph on the wall, one of Lucas's med school graduation. A proud day. "You used to smile more back then," she said gently. Lucas gave a small shrug, as if the memory embarrassed him. Marissa narrowed her eyes. "Maybe you just remember it how you want to," she muttered. "I beg your pardon?" Marissa slammed her fork down. "You always twist everything. You make people feel guilty for living their lives. You float into our home expecting everything to stop for you." "Marissa," Lucas said, not in warning but in agreement. Eleanor's mouth opened in disbelief. "I came here because you insisted, Lucas. I didn't ask. You stayed because you wanted to. That's what you always do. Make everything about you," Marissa snapped. Her voice cracked. Then she stood, face red, voice trembling. "Why don't you just disappear?" Silence. The kind that burns. Eleanor turned to her son. Her son. He didn't look at her. He didn't deny it. He just said, "Maybe it's for the best." The sound of her own heartbeat roared in her ears. Her fork fell from her fingers. Her throat felt too tight to speak. She excused herself, climbed the stairs, and shut the guest room door behind her. But even there, the cold followed her in. That night, Eleanor sat by the window, suitcase repacked and heart hollow, staring into the dark garden, and by morning, she was gone. The sun rose over the Caldwell home, casting golden light on a house that suddenly felt too quiet. Marissa was already in the kitchen, humming faintly as she placed 2 coffee mugs on the counter. Her fingers moved automatically, calm. Too calm. Lucas shuffled in moments later, hair tousled, eyes still clouded with sleep. He noticed the silence first. "Where's my mom?" he asked, rubbing the back of his neck. Marissa didn't turn around. "She's gone." Lucas frowned. "What do you mean, gone?" Marissa finally turned, sipping her coffee. "I woke up around 3 a.m. and heard the front door close. I checked, and she was gone. Suitcase too." Lucas stared. "She left?" "I guess she finally took the hint. There was no note. No goodbye. No message left on the fridge or phone. Eleanor's room was empty. Bed neatly made, drawers bare. Her toothbrush was still on the counter. Her reading glasses, however, were gone. Lucas called her cell. Straight to voicemail. They didn't call the police until late that evening. And when they did, Marissa took the lead. "She's been confused lately," she told the officer, voice tinged with theatrical worry. "She's been saying strange things, like people are watching her. We thought maybe early dementia?" Lucas stayed mostly quiet, nodding when asked. By the end of the brief visit, the responding officer had jotted down a simple report. Elderly woman, post-operative, likely wandered off. No foul play suspected. Marissa handed him a photo of Eleanor, one she had printed quickly that morning. It was curiously outdated, showing Eleanor in unflattering light, older and frailer than she truly appeared. After the police left, Lucas hovered near the window, staring out at the dusky sky. "We should call the hospitals," he said. "We will," Marissa replied. "But let's not panic. She wanted to leave. She's done this before, remember? After your dad passed." "No," Lucas said slowly. "That was different. That was grief." Marissa walked over and placed a hand on his chest, soothing, almost patronizing. "She'll turn up." But she didn't. And the next day, Marissa began clearing Eleanor's things from the guest room. Her clothing, boxed. Her old books, donated. Her framed family photos, tossed. Lucas didn't protest. Not out loud, but across town, in a tidy second-floor apartment filled with crossword puzzles and teacups, Iris Wyndham read the news alert on her tablet and felt something cold settle in her bones. Missing woman. 68-year-old Eleanor Caldwell, last seen at son's home Sunday evening. Eleanor's best friend of nearly 40 years, Iris had known her through widowhood, illness, and reinvention. And she knew this. Eleanor didn't just vanish. Not without saying goodbye. She immediately called Lucas, who answered on the third ring. "She's not here," he said without greeting. "That's not what I asked," Iris said, sharp. "What happened?" "She left," he said dully. "Middle of the night." "No note?" "She didn't leave one." Iris's silence was long and deliberate. "You're lying," she said finally, then hung up. That night, Iris pulled out a spiral-bound notebook and began making lists. Eleanor's medications, bank accounts, doctor's appointments, friends, enemies, memories. She started by checking the local shelters and emergency rooms. Nothing. Then she turned to the bank. Iris knew Eleanor well enough to remember she used the same community credit union she'd recommended years ago. Using a few librarian tricks and a little social engineering, she managed to get a customer service representative to confirm one startling fact. A withdrawal of $25,000 had been made from Eleanor's savings account. On the morning after her disappearance, Iris sat still in her armchair, the quiet hum of the kettle forgotten. The transaction had been done in person. At a branch 30 miles away, Iris requested video footage. She was denied. She pressed for a copy of the signature, denied again, but she did get the name of the teller. And that was enough for now. The next morning, Iris arrived unannounced at Lucas's home. Marissa answered the door with an exaggerated sigh. "Iris, we've already spoken to the police." "I'm not the police," Iris said evenly. "I'm her friend. And I'm not going away." She pushed past Marissa, stepping inside. The house smelled faintly of citrus cleaner and lavender-scented deception. The guest room was empty, but a box near the trash caught her eye. Eleanor's hardcover dictionary, something she never would have left behind. On top, a half-filled crossword puzzle book, its pages torn in haste. Marissa hovered behind her. "You're making this harder than it needs to be," she said under her breath. "I haven't even started yet," Iris replied, her eyes glittering with something sharp and unrelenting. Outside, storm clouds began to gather. And inside the mind of a woman with a librarian's memory and a sleuth's instincts, the first pieces of a darker puzzle began to fall into place. Iris had always believed every problem had a pattern, every secret a seam waiting to be tugged. It was how she'd built her reputation at the city library. Never a book out of place, never a reference unanswered. Now, retired but still sharp as ever, she was applying that same precision to the mystery of Eleanor Caldwell. The $25,000 withdrawal gnawed at her. Eleanor would never touch that much money at once. She paid bills with checks. She kept a paper planner. And she hated driving outside the city limits. So who made the withdrawal? And why? When she called the branch again, the manager, under mounting pressure, finally admitted something peculiar. The woman who withdrew the money showed ID, but the teller couldn't swear it was Eleanor. The camera footage had already been overwritten. Iris's blood ran cold. Someone had impersonated Eleanor. And they'd done it fast, less than 24 hours after her disappearance. Who was that organized? Someone who had been planning this. Iris pulled the thread tighter. Eleanor once mentioned she had a small storage unit on the outskirts of town, mostly old paperwork, photographs, family mementos. Iris drove there that afternoon, umbrella in one hand, notebook in the other. The woman at the front desk hesitated when Iris asked. Yes, there's a unit in her name. But funny thing, a man came by a few days ago asking about it too. Said he was her son. Lucas. Iris's tone went brittle. Did he go inside? No, he didn't have the key. We don't allow forced entry unless there's legal documentation. Iris exhaled, barely containing her relief. Could I access it as her emergency contact? The woman hesitated, then shrugged. She listed you on the form 5 years ago, I suppose. The padlock clicked open with a satisfying snap. Inside, dust hung in the air like memories. Cardboard boxes. One metal filing cabinet. A battered trunk with Eleanor's maiden initials stamped in faded ink. Iris pulled on gloves and got to work. Inside the trunk, photo albums from the 70s and 80s, letters from Eleanor's late husband, and a manila folder that had clearly been moved recently. Inside the folder, a copy of an old will. Iris's eyes widened. This wasn't a family heirloom. This was a legal document dated 7 years ago, listing Eleanor as the sole heir to a sizable estate, one Marissa's family had long claimed was bankrupt and bled dry in legal battles. But this will had never been processed. Eleanor had known something didn't add up. She had been digging. Quietly, Iris sat down on the cold floor of the unit, the puzzle forming faster now. Marissa married Lucas 6 years ago, just months after this will was drawn up. And this will had never been seen by a probate lawyer. Eleanor never told Iris about it. Why? Maybe she was waiting for the right moment, or the right proof. Iris moved to the filing cabinet next. Inside, medical records, receipts, a few travel itineraries. But tucked between 2 folders was something warped and fragile. A scorched photograph, She recognized Lucas immediately, his face younger, full of pride and stress, standing outside a brick building nearly collapsed by flames. The caption on the back, in Eleanor's handwriting, read, "The fire that nearly ended him." It was the clinic fire. Iris had only heard of it in passing. Lucas's private practice, consumed in a freak electrical accident just 2 years into operation. The case had been closed. Insurance had paid out. But in the bottom corner of the photo, barely visible, a gas can, not part of the official narrative. Iris stared, her breath catching. Was it possible Lucas had torched his own practice, and Eleanor found out? The final discovery came in a small velvet pouch tucked behind the photo albums, a USB drive. Iris took it home, hands shaking. She plugged it into her laptop, heart pounding. Inside were audio files. Dozens. Quiet, grainy recordings of conversations. Eleanor had been recording them. One file in particular caught Iris's attention, dated just 2 weeks before her disappearance. Lucas's voice. Harsh. Low. "She doesn't know anything." Marissa's voice replied, tight with fury. "She knows enough. About the trust, the will, even the fire. If she opens her mouth, it all comes crashing down." Iris sat back in her chair, the words echoing in her ears. Eleanor hadn't just stumbled onto secrets. She'd been hunting them, and she was getting close. Too close. Which meant someone had shut her up before she could speak. But they hadn't counted on Iris. She was the keeper of Eleanor's puzzles now, and one by one, she would crack them wide open. The more Iris uncovered, the more she realized Eleanor hadn't just vanished. She had been erased. Each discovery brought the cold certainty that someone wanted Eleanor silenced. But what had truly triggered the disappearance? The will? The fire? Or something else? Something buried even deeper? A name kept surfacing, not in bold declarations, but in whispers, in hastily scribbled notes, in coded references Eleanor had tucked into margins of her journals and folder tabs. CW. Iris knew better than to assume coincidence. It was in the corners of a letter Eleanor had never sent, on the inside flap of an envelope from Marissa's hometown, and finally in a line from a notebook entry dated 2 weeks before Eleanor vanished. CW was right to run. I didn't, and now I'm being watched. Iris didn't sleep that night. Instead, she dug into Marissa's past the way only a librarian could, with digital archives, deep search queries, and a stubbornness sharpened by decades of solving unsolvable cataloging mysteries. Marissa hadn't always been Marissa. She was born Marissa Whitlow, daughter of the powerful Whitlow family, owners of a once prominent real estate empire in the small town of Haven Rock. But in the local paper's archives, Iris found a curious story from 17 years prior. A nurse named Claire Whitlow, Marissa's cousin, or perhaps sister, had vanished without a trace. No foul play suspected. No body ever found. Case closed within weeks. The family had claimed she was mentally unstable, that she ran off during a depressive episode. Iris felt her pulse spike. Claire Whitlow. CW Claire had been 25. Beautiful, engaged to a local EMT, and she worked at the same clinic Lucas would later intern at, the one that burned down. Digging deeper, Iris found a public message board tied to local news gossip. A post, dated around the time of Claire's disappearance, chilled her. Claire W. said she had proof, said the Whitlows were covering up something big. She was scared. She told me if anything happened to her, check the old storage barn near Lake Brindle. Post deleted hours later. I saved a screenshot. The username? Bookish Bren, a known contributor from Haven Rock's now-defunct Historical Society. Iris tracked her down. Brenda Wallace, now a freelance archivist. A phone call and a train ride later, Iris was in Haven Rock, sitting across from a woman who looked like she hadn't spoken of Claire in years. I remember her, Brenda said, eyes distant. Bright, shy, but one day she just changed. Said someone in her family had done something horrible, something they were going to bury. What was it? Iris asked. Brenda shook her head. She wouldn't say. just that she was going to leave everything behind. Go into hiding, maybe. Then she looked at Iris, brows furrowed. You said Eleanor Caldwell was looking into this? How's she connected? Iris hesitated. She mentioned Claire in her notes, more than once. Brenda's lips parted. Then your friend's in danger. Iris was already aware. Back in Eleanor's storage unit, she had missed something. A worn suitcase, hidden beneath old holiday decorations. She hadn't opened it the first time. Now, with fresh context, she carefully unzipped it. Inside were old postcards from Haven Rock, newspaper clippings about the Whitlows, and a letter. Handwritten, unsigned. But the voice was young, terrified, and unmistakably female. They know I know. I think someone followed me today. If I disappear, tell Eleanor Caldwell she was right. Tell her not to trust the one who pretends to love her son. The name Claire was never used, but Iris didn't need it. It was all there. The fear, the secret, and the connection to Eleanor. What had Eleanor uncovered? A pattern, a cycle. Disappearance, denial, cover-up. And now it was happening again. But this time, Eleanor had been one step ahead. Because tucked beneath that same letter, Iris found a folded document, half-charred, water-stained, but legible. A restraining order, filed by Claire Whitlow against a man named Jordan Wexler, a now-deceased business partner of the Whitlows, and Marissa's uncle. Eleanor had been tracing every lead, every name, every buried scandal. The pieces were coming together. Eleanor had confronted Marissa, maybe even Lucas, about this hidden past, and days later, she was gone. But someone else was still missing too, Claire. And if Claire had been right to run, maybe Eleanor hadn't run fast enough. That night, Iris received an anonymous email. No message. Just an attachment. A photo. It was Eleanor, sitting in a chair, her face pale, eyes open, blanketed by shadow. The timestamp? 2 days ago. She was still alive. And Iris was done following the trail. Now she would tear it apart. Iris sat at her kitchen table, surrounded by the chaos of printouts, folders, and a glowing laptop screen illuminating the night. The photo of Eleanor, sent anonymously just hours ago, kept replaying in her mind, alive, but fragile, and unmistakably held against her will. But beneath the immediate urgency was a deeper mystery she couldn't shake: the clinic fire. Lucas Caldwell's once thriving medical practice had gone up in flames nearly a decade ago. Officially, it was an accident, a faulty wiring fault, but something in Eleanor's secret files, especially that scorched photo Iris had uncovered, suggested otherwise. With renewed focus, Iris started contacting old sources connected to Lucas's past career, former patients, clinic employees, even fire department investigators who had handled the case. Most had nothing new to add, or simply didn't want to talk. Until she met Emma Doyle, a former nurse at the clinic, who reluctantly agreed to meet at a quiet cafe on the edge of town. Emma's hands trembled as she sipped her coffee. I don't know why I'm saying this, she whispered, but there was always something off about that fire. Lucas was under a lot of pressure. Money problems, legal battles with insurance companies, and Marissa? She wasn't who she seemed. She was always lurking in the background, whispering in his ear. Emma paused, swallowing hard. One night, the week before the fire, I saw Marissa arguing with someone in the parking lot, a man I'd never seen before. They looked furious. She stormed off, but the man stayed behind, carrying a gas can. Iris's heart pounded. The pieces were starting to snap into place. That gas can, the same one barely visible in the scorched photo. Did anyone ever investigate that man? Iris asked. Emma shook her head. No one. He disappeared right after the fire. Lucas was devastated, said it was an electrical fault and insisted on moving on. But I always suspected arson. Back at her apartment, Iris pulled out the USB drive again. Among the recordings, she found one that chilled her to the bone. A heated phone call between Lucas and Marissa just days before Eleanor's disappearance. You can't let her ruin everything, The will, the trust, the fire. If she talks, we lose it all. But what if she won't stop? She's already digging too deep. Then we silence her, Lucas said coldly. Silence followed, and then Marissa's voice. We'll make it look like she left. A choice. No one will question it. Iris's hands trembled, but she played the file again. This time, a third voice joined the conversation. A low, unfamiliar male voice, urgent and threatening. Do it fast. Before she uncovers Claire's truth. The room spun. Claire Whitlow, Marissa's vanished cousin, was tangled in this darker web more than Iris had guessed. She was in over her head. But she had no choice. Eleanor's life depended on unraveling the past. Suddenly, Iris's phone buzzed. An anonymous text. Back off or next time, it won't be a warning. Her heart raced. Someone was watching her now. But Iris wasn't about to stop. The next day, a sharp knock on her door startled her. A man in a suit stood there, flashing a badge. Ms. Wallace? I'm Detective Harper. We've reopened the investigation into Eleanor Caldwell's disappearance. We have questions about Lucas and Marissa Caldwell. Relief and dread mingled inside her. The police were finally taking it seriously. Detective Harper revealed they'd discovered inconsistencies in the original fire report, unreported accelerants, and suspicious phone records linking Lucas to known arson suspects. But that's not all, Harper said. Eleanor had recently hired a lawyer to update her will and establish a trust fund. The lawyer tells us the beneficiary was changed just 2 days before Eleanor vanished. Iris's breath caught. Who's the new beneficiary? A mystery. Eleanor's lawyer refuses to disclose without proper authorization. But we believe Eleanor wanted someone outside the family. Outside, Iris felt the weight of the threats and secrets closing in. Her phone rang, an unknown number. She answered cautiously. Leave this alone, a distorted voice hissed. Or you'll be next. Iris clenched her fists. No, I'm not afraid. As she hung up, she spotted a shadow flicker across the street. Her investigation was no longer just about Eleanor. It was about stopping a deadly conspiracy before another life was lost. Iris knew the truth was finally surfacing, like oil slick rising from still water. Each revelation left a stain, a foul shimmer of deception that made the past impossible to ignore. Claire Whitlow wasn't just a tragic footnote in Marissa's family history, she was the key. Eleanor had known it. That's why she scribbled Claire's name in the margins of her notebook, hid her letters in storage, and traced her past with the doggedness of someone who feared the consequences of stopping. The question now wasn't just what happened to Claire, it was, who silenced her, and what did Eleanor uncover that made her the next target? Determined, Iris revisited Brenda Wallace, the Historical Society archivist in Haven Rock. Brenda was nervous when she opened the door, glancing over her shoulder before letting Iris in. There's something I didn't tell you, she said, voice shaking. Claire kept a diary. She mailed it to me the week before she vanished, told me to hide it. From beneath the floorboards of her home office, Brenda pulled out a shoebox wrapped in faded newspaper. Inside was a leather-bound journal, its pages delicate with age but ink still sharp. Iris opened it, her hands trembling. Entry after entry spilled out paranoia and pain. I saw him again today, watching me from the parking lot. They say I'm crazy, but I'm not. I know what I saw, the things Jordan did, and what he paid my uncle to hide. They all know, even Marissa. I trusted her. She was my friend. I told her everything, and now she won't answer my calls. I think Marissa is pretending not to know. She smiles like we're strangers, like we never sat on my bed, swearing we'd protect each other. But she's pretending now, and she's good at pretending. If anything happens to me, tell Eleanor Caldwell she was right about the Whitlows. Iris snapped the book shut. The betrayal ran deep. Marissa and Claire hadn't just known each other, they'd been close, possibly even like sisters. And something had happened, something Claire had witnessed or confided that made her a threat. But what? Iris's next stop was Haven Rock's county records office, where she requested property deeds, legal filings, and business transactions involving the Whitlow family. The deeper she dug, the darker it got. The Whitlows had quietly settled 2 lawsuits over the past 20 years, sealed agreements involving 2 women who had worked in their real estate offices. The details were hidden, but Iris found one critical overlap. Both women had been in contact with Jordan Wexler, Marissa's uncle and Claire's alleged abuser, before their claims were buried, and both had suddenly moved across the country after their settlements. Claire's disappearance followed months later. Iris knew she had to tell the police, but something stopped her. Because that night, her phone rang again. This time the voice wasn't distorted. It was hoarse, strained, but unmistakably familiar. Iris? Her blood ran cold. Eleanor? I don't have long. I'm still. Her voice broke into coughing. I found something. About Claire, about Marissa. There's a file, a confession, but I couldn't leave. I think they know where I am now. Where are you? Iris asked, panic rising. I'm near the lake. The cottage, not the one you think, the other one. It's still theirs, the family's. The call cut out. Iris stared at her phone in shock. Eleanor was alive, and she had proof. But what cottage? The one Marissa claimed had been sold years ago? No. It had to be something else. Another family property. She began searching real estate registries, inheritance documents, anything connected to the Whitlows. Then she saw it, a land transfer document, buried under a maze of shell corporations. A second cottage, smaller, isolated, tucked deep in the woods outside Haven Rock. It was registered to a limited partnership that, when traced, connected back to the Whitlows and to Claire Whitlow. A chill ran down Iris's spine. Claire had owned the land, but she'd vanished before she could ever move there. Had Marissa taken it over? Was Eleanor there now? Just then, Iris's inbox pinged. An encrypted email from Eleanor's lawyer. The subject line, beneficiary change finalized. The body of the message was brief. Per Eleanor Caldwell's amended instructions, trust to be executed upon confirmation of death or incapacitation. Beneficiary, Claire Whitlow, or, if deceased, her legal heir. In Claire's absence, the secondary heir is designated Iris Wallace. Iris stared at the screen in disbelief. Eleanor hadn't just been trying to protect herself. She'd been trying to finish what Claire started. But if Eleanor trusted her with everything, then Marissa would come for her next. A noise snapped Iris back into the moment. A soft scrape outside her window. Someone was watching her again. Iris had only been to the outskirts of Haven Rock's Lake District once, years ago, and even then, it had felt more like the edge of a memory than a real place. Now, under the weight of Eleanor's voicemail and the threat of her own growing target, the woods seemed to breathe around her with quiet menace. The sold cottage, one Marissa had long claimed was out of the family's hands, wasn't just not sold. It had never been listed at all. Hidden through a thicket of false ownership papers and shell corporations, Iris had uncovered the truth. The Whitlow family still owned not one, but 2 cottages on Silver Pine Lake. One was public, listed in family trust records. The other, a smaller, older structure deeper in the forest, was quietly transferred decades ago to Claire Whitlow, and no one had lived there publicly since Claire disappeared. Until now. With Eleanor's faint, fractured voice still echoing in her mind. I'm near the lake, not the one you think. Iris loaded her car with essentials and drove through winding roads and gravel trails, eventually reaching the second, unmarked cottage, its mailbox long rusted, the signpost worn blank by time. She stepped out, wind stirring through the trees, her breath visible in the early morning chill. The place was still. Too still. The windows were grimy, but not broken. The roof sagged, but stood firm. A back porch light was on, faintly flickering. She circled the building carefully. No car, no footprints, but the lock on the door had been recently replaced. New brass against old wood, Inside, the air was musty. The floorboards creaked in protest under her feet. Dust clung to every surface, except one corner of the kitchen counter. A glass sat there, clean as if freshly washed. A mismatched spoon lay beside it. Someone had been here. Recently. Iris's hand trembled as she opened a hallway door. The bathroom was small and windowless. In the mirror, she saw herself pale and grim, a reflection of the fear that had followed her from town to woods. Then she found it, a hidden panel behind a wardrobe, partially ajar. Behind it, a narrow set of stairs leading downward, a basement. Her flashlight beam pierced the blackness. The air was heavier here, tinged with something metallic. She stepped down, slow and careful. At the bottom, the floor flattened into a cramped room. Concrete walls, faint mold, a cot in the corner, and a red scarf. Eleanor's scarf. Bloodied. Iris staggered back, bile rising in her throat. On the cot were ropes, frayed at the edges. Someone had been tied here. Recently. Drag marks in the dust. But no Eleanor. A soft mechanical whir caught her ear. She turned. Hidden in the upper corner was a small camera, its red light blinking. Recording. Or was it broadcasting? She traced the wires to a router, still warm. There had been a system here. Surveillance grade, not amateur. She found an empty hard drive dock beside it. Someone had ripped out the storage, but hadn't disabled the live feed, meaning someone might be watching now. She tore the camera down and sprinted back upstairs, heart pounding. In the living room, the floor creaked behind her. She froze. A shadow moved in the hallway. "Eleanor?" she whispered. No answer. She turned, but the hallway was empty. Only the door to the cellar now stood wide open, though she had shut it behind her. A whisper from the corner of the room made her blood run cold. Iris. It was faint. It didn't come from behind her, it came from beneath. She dropped to her knees, ears straining. Another whisper. Don't believe her. She yanked the rug aside and found it, a small hatch hidden in the floorboards, nailed shut. Her hands worked feverishly to pry it open. Finally, the lid cracked loose. Below, barely illuminated by her flashlight, was a crawl space, and in it, curled up, weak, eyes fluttering, was Eleanor. Alive. Barely. Iris dropped down and pulled her into her arms. "I've got you. You're safe now." Eleanor shook her head weakly. "No, not safe. She's still watching." "Who?" Iris asked. But Eleanor passed out. Iris hoisted her out of the crawl space and covered the opening again. Then, footsteps. Outside. Heavy. Measured. Iris froze. Someone was on the porch. Then, a knock. 3 sharp taps. And a voice she recognized. "Open the door, Iris. Marissa." Iris didn't open the door. Not to Marissa. Not with Eleanor barely breathing on the floor behind her. She crouched beside her friend, quickly dialing emergency services on her burner phone, not her usual cell. She'd been careful about that. The dispatcher was calm, but Iris could barely choke the words out. "There's a woman here. She's alive, drugged. I think she's been held captive. Yes, I'm in Haven Rock. Lakeside. No, not the main road. There's a second cottage." But then the power went out. The porch light blinked once. Twice. Darkness. A surge of panic rushed through Iris. She looked at her phone. Signal lost. She dragged Eleanor to the back of the house, careful not to jostle her too hard, and barricaded them both in the laundry room, wedging a chair under the knob. The air was stifling. Eleanor stirred. "I kept records in the crawlspace second-floor wall panel," she whispered. "She made me say it on video. But it's not true." "What did she make you say, Eleanor?" "That I framed them," Eleanor rasped. "That I lied about the will. About the fire. About Claire." Iris felt bile rise in her throat. It was worse than she thought. Marissa hadn't just hidden Eleanor, she'd been grooming a false confession. Outside, a car engine started. Not Marissa's voice this time, but Lucas's. "She found her," he said. "We're finished." "Don't be weak," Marissa snapped. "She's still a crazy old woman. You think the police are going to believe her? Or Iris? We have the confession. We release it before they find them. Problem solved. Iris slipped from the back door, heart hammering, and sprinted around the side of the house. She needed proof. Now. Upstairs, just as Eleanor had said, she found the panel in the wall behind a painting. Inside, a weatherproof lockbox. She pried it open. Inside, flash drives, journals, photos, a tape recorder. The label on one drive read, Claire, final conversation. Another, Lucas, clinic fire, and the recorder was already cued to play. Eleanor's voice crackled to life. I never trusted her. Not fully. Not after what I saw in Claire's eyes. She told me if I didn't stay quiet, I'd end up like her. But I wrote everything down. I gave Iris access to my lawyer. If you're hearing this, I'm probably gone. But let them try to erase me. Let them try. A screech of tires outside. Police sirens. Iris ran to the front window. A sheriff's cruiser blocked the driveway. Then another. Marissa was handcuffed within moments, red-faced and shrieking about manipulation and false accusations. Lucas didn't resist. He simply sat on the porch step, face in hands. But the next twist was already unspooling. At the hospital, as Eleanor recovered, the lawyer arrived. A quiet man in his 60s with a thin mustache and a vault of secrets behind his eyes. She came to me 2 days before she disappeared, he said to Iris. Said she was changing her trust and needed me to handle something private. He handed Iris a sealed envelope. Inside, a new will naming Iris the trustee and executor of Eleanor's estate. A notarized confession from Claire, never made public. And an audio file on a tiny USB drive. Iris played it. It was Marissa's voice. Clear, cold. I don't care what she thinks she knows. She's old, and no one believes women like that. No one believed Claire. No one will believe Eleanor. The date stamp? 3 days after Eleanor vanished. When confronted with the tape, Marissa's mask shattered. She screamed, ranted, clawed at the table during the interrogation, but it was done. The trial took months. Lucas took a plea deal, providing testimony about the clinic fire. Marissa had said it, not out of malice, but desperation. She feared Lucas was going to leave her after Eleanor questioned his ethics. The fire covered up financial discrepancies. Marissa used that leverage to draw him deeper into her web. But when Eleanor threatened to expose the truth and Claire's story resurfaced, Marissa panicked. She sedated Eleanor, hid her, then recorded the doctored confession using deepfake audio and spliced video from old conversations. She planned to discover it posthumously, painting Eleanor as mentally unstable and vengeful, but Iris ruined everything. Eleanor never returned to her old house. Instead, she moved in with Iris, the two of them becoming something like sisters by survival. And in a final twist of irony, the home Marissa tried to use as a prison, it became a shelter. Eleanor donated it, along with a portion of her restored estate, to an organization for abused women. Its new name, Claire's Haven. On opening day, Iris cut the ribbon. Eleanor stood beside her. Alive, unbowed, and very much believed.